With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Sport is often about set-piece events and milestones. Things like world records, medals, countdowns, the last lap. But now with 100 days to go before Tokyo 2020, I think it's fair to say there's never been quite an event like this year's Olympic Games. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. And I'm Michael.
I'm John, and coming up, we'll round up all the latest developments from in and around Japan. We've got a double Olympic champion and one of the first names on the Great British team sheet as well.
Hi, my name's Jade Jones. Women are really starting to join and lead the way, and it's just amazing to be part of it, and, especially the history as well. I just love making histories.
I'm Jess Learmonth, and I'll be representing Team GB at Tokyo 2021. Things like this will come up and I think, 100 days? Like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready.
We'll be talking dreams, plus latest swimming, sailing, rowing, and hockey news.
And as always, you can get in touch with the podcast. You can find us on Twitter at AnythingButF. You can also message us via Instagram and Facebook. Check us out online. Our website is anythingbutfooty.com. And if you'd like to email us anything you want to say about the podcast, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. So we have 100 days to go to the Olympic Games, the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games.
Wow.
What will that opening ceremony look like? Will the people of Japan be enthusiastic about the Games? Latest reports suggest no. And all importantly, will those athletes get to the start line safe and healthy? And will we see competition like we've come to expect from the greatest show on earth?
Lots of negativity, isn't there, Michael, at the moment about the Games still. Will they go on? I mean, from what we're being told, the focus is very much that these Games will take place. And from Team GB's point of view, it's about getting the athletes on the start line. Doesn't really matter about all the rest of the stuff that's going on, but it's about getting on the start line. But so much negativity about stuff. But actually, what you don't realise is sport is continuing in Japan. There's spectators at sporting events. Yes, there are cases going up in certain places. In Osaka, there's been a spike that forced the Olympic flame off public roads and without any spectators this week. And there are concerns. Obviously, there are concerns. We don't know what is going to happen this year at all with COVID, whether it's here in the UK or over in Japan. So there are concerns, but there seems little optimism, and that's what I find a little strange.
Yeah, and I think we are looking at it, as we often do with these things, through a very British pair of glasses, if you like. So we're seeing headlines here like state of emergency declared in Tokyo. And there's been, as we speak, new countermeasures, stricter countermeasures put in place in various parts of Japan and various parts of Tokyo. But those countermeasures are nothing like as stringent or as strict as we've had in this country. So, for example, that state of emergency that's been declared and those most recent countermeasures, all that means is that restaurants have to close at 8 o'clock in the evening. We've not had restaurants open since the start of the year. These restaurants have been open in Tokyo. And people have said to me time and time again over the past few weeks, state of emergency in Tokyo, that means the games are not going to go ahead. I've countered that each and every time by saying the reason that these measures are being put in place is to ensure that the games do go ahead. They're not being put in place because the games are under threat. They're being put in place because the Japanese government have got, who knows, maybe a $20 billion investment in making sure this event happens. They've got the biggest IOC local sponsorship program ever, nearly $4 billion. So they need to get these games on. These games are important for the Japanese psyche in terms of the natural and the man-made disasters they've had to deal with over the past decade, the fact that their economy has been tanking. This was always about a message to the world that Japan was open for business. And that is more important than ever now because they can't get those overseas spectators in. So what they do need to do is present the greatest show on earth on television so that when COVID is behind us, when things begin to change back to how we knew it before, people will think about Tokyo, think about Japan as somewhere they'd like to go and see, somewhere they would like to go and visit. Exactly the way Barcelona did it in 92, exactly the way Sydney did it in 2000.
You mentioned the overseas fans being barred. Now, we went to Rio and there were overseas fans there, mainly friends and family of the athletes, and I think they will be the ones that will probably suffer, and we'll maybe talk about that a bit later on. But overseas fans are barred. The IOC and the Paralympics have announced that they're cutting guest accreditations. There was these ridiculous rules that you could bring so many different people into the Olympics. You can have day passes, despite accreditation being really tight and us having to spend years trying to get our own accreditation. Other people could bring other people in. All that's being cut back. So to try and find some optimism for you, here's some stats that I thought were interesting. You mentioned the Japanese public don't want the games. And in fact, if you look at the stats, 72% say in March they don't want the games. But here's the optimism. It's gone up. Who do want it from 11% in January to 27% in March. That's 25% of the Japanese public now saying they want the games to take place this summer. I remember working in London in 2012, probably this time 9 years ago now, of course, because we've delayed the Olympics by a year. And the negativity in London for the best games ever, and frankly the best summer that I have lived through in my life in this country. I was born in 1976, which is the greatest summer of all time according to everybody. But London 2012 matched that. But the misery and the negativity and we're going to fail at this. We don't want all these Olympians coming here. We don't want cars on our roads. We don't want these stadiums. We don't want this Olympic stadium to ever be around after the games. All that negativity was here before London. And then what happened? And as the quote from the IOC say, every time we are inspired by strength and resilience from the athletes, and that's what the Olympics delivers, and they think the mood will change over the weeks and particularly when the games take place.
As that helicopter hovered overhead the Olympic Stadium on the 27th of July 2012, not only did Daniel Craig and the Queen jump out, but the IOC sprinkled their magic dust. And that is what the IOC and the Olympic Games can do to a host city. And we have seen that time and time again. The build-up to Olympic Games are always fraught. They're always controversial. There are always issues. This one, greater than any we've ever seen before. But when the show starts, as it did in Rio, when Zika was on the agenda and people were talking about boycotting because of that, when we didn't think the venues were going to be ready, when Athens was still laying the tiles and putting the paint down, as the athletes were marching into the Olympic Stadium, and we thought it was going to be horrendous. it happened and it was brilliant and the people bought into it. And that is what hosting the Olympic Games can do. This has been the biggest challenge ever. This is more than whether a few toilets have been plumbed in correctly, whether the right dressing has been put on the slalom canoe centre. This is a much, much bigger thing. But the playbooks, the manuals are in place. The work has gone on for a year to ensure that these games go ahead. There will be issues. There will be coronavirus cases. There will be talk about super spreading events. But I think when it starts, when it happens, whatever that opening ceremony looks like, I think it will be well supported. And I think people will be very proud in Tokyo at the end of the summer of 2021 to have delivered an Olympic Games and a Paralympic Games against the backdrop of coronavirus and the biggest challenges ever. One final thing I just want to say about crowds. A lot of people are saying to me it's not going to be the same if crowds aren't in. We went to athletics in Rio. There were no crowds at loads of those sessions. Again, we look at that through London 2012 eyes, where every ticket was sold. The only empty seats were when delegations didn't turn up. People in Rio went to the volleyball. They went to the football, because those are the sports that they like and they play. They didn't go to the athletics. You could walk into loads and loads of events and see lots of empty seats. So if there are going to be some empty seats because of social distancing, that's not going to be unusual.
Here's some more optimism as well. Japan are going to have a brilliant sporting year. They've already got Naomi Osaka, the greatest tennis player in the world at the moment in the women's game. They have also, of course, got the new Masters golf champion as well. So they are going to do incredibly well, like Great Britain did at London 2012, and obviously continued that in Rio. That will get that optimism going. We're going to hear from Jess Learmonth and Jade Jones in a couple of moments' time, but I want to ask you one more question, Michael, on the opening ceremony. How on earth do you stage a socially distant, COVID-safe opening ceremony with 200 nations, apart from North Korea, turning up?
Well, I think you have to do it differently. I still think there'll be the cultural programme because I think the various dance troupes and all the rest that you get in the cultural presentation can bubble ahead of it and can quarantine afterwards. I still think you're going to get the protocol, although it wouldn't surprise me if some of that is maybe done virtually in terms of speeches by IOC members, the oaths and everything else that's taken. You're still going to hear things like the Olympic anthem. The big question mark has to be over two things. The crowd. We are used to 100,000 odd people watching an Olympic Games opening ceremony. I'm not sure that will happen, but what a stark message to the world that would give if there's maybe 20,000 in, all socially distant. That maybe will be more symbolic to what we've gone through over the past 18 months, as it will probably be by the time we get going. And the athletes' parade. Now, the athletes themselves are not wild about doing the parade. As far as the ceremony is concerned, it's often a long and quite tedious part of the broadcast presentation. So maybe just go to flag bearers each, or invite local children to bring flags in, or again, look at a virtual solution whereby you bounce around via Zoom or Teams or whatever, various national houses, hotels, village setups, and see the flag bearers there, rather than have 5,000 athletes parading around the stadium.
I think they should bring the mascots back. Everyone who's ever had an Olympic mascot should come and carry the flag. We need Wenlock back for Team GB, carrying that flag into the stadium. And Vinicius, the Brazilian mascot. What about that as an idea?
I'm not a big fan of mascots. Olympic mascots, yeah, I can just about deal with.
You can't beat them.
As long as we don't bring Bolino the bear or Hero from the World Athletics Championships back up, you'll do for me.
They were absolute legends, both of those. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. Let's hear from a couple of athletes then. Firstly, Jess Learmonth, one of the first names on the Team GB roster. The triathlete star from Leeds is among the canoeists, sport climbers, shooters, marathon and race walkers, sailors, and some swimmers who've already been selected. She's been at home with partner John for much of the past year, which has been very, very different. But we caught up with her this week, and she's looking forward to now competing in Tokyo.
I mean, I keep just ploughing on with my days and my weeks, and then, things like this will come up and I think, 100 days? Like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready. So it just creeps up on you, but yeah, it's exciting as well.
So what have you been doing in the last few months?
Usual, just training really. I mean, it's been a bit weird because we've done a lot of training on our own. So other than swimming, you can obviously, we've done it with other people, but like just won a lane and stuff like that. So it's a bit weird that recently, we're allowed to just train with anyone we want and in groups on the bike and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice that things are just kind of slowly getting back to normal. But in terms of training, I've just been ploughing on like I normally would, just apart from in Yorkshire where it's snowing one minute and sunny the next, rather than in Australia. So that's probably the only difference that from this time last year, really.
So I was going to say, Yorkshire is so renowned for its hills and its inclement weather, and it's a great location for triathlon, which is why you guys are based there. But you wouldn't normally be here this time of year.
No, it's funny because I said to John, I don't think I've spent a full winter, because normally we'd go away in like January. So although, it's like the new year, you're actually missing quite a lot of the cold weather. So I'm a bit of a fraud really, because normally I'd like stay till Christmas and then I'd bugger off to warmer climates. So this is like the first year that I've spent the full winter at home, and it seems to be dragging on. It's just a bit much when you're getting caught in snowstorms in April. It's just a bit like you just want a bit of a relief from it. But the lighter nights are pretty nice, I've got to say, because before that with triathlon obviously we train quite a lot and you've got to cram everything in. Well, I like to cram it in before like running outside in the dark, so it's so nice to have longer days, so you can get a bit more resting and stuff, so that's quite nice.
Yeah, certainly made a difference in the last few weeks, hasn't it? I mean, we talked last time about lockdown and John built you a gym in your house and your back garden. I mean, it's nice, as you said, to get back out and train with your teammates and kind of start building that team ahead of going out to the Tokyo, where you will, of course, be a team again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been so long. It seems even weird being out on the bike and then you'll see groups of cyclists. You think, whoa, that's weird. That's just not normal, because for the last year, we've just been such loners. So it is nice, like training with others and stuff. And to be honest, I've not gone gung-ho. Like, actually, you'd think that I'd be wanting to ride with everybody, but I think 'cause I'm so into just riding on my own, I'm just doing it slowly, So I'm actually still riding quite a bit with just John, but I'm sure I will get into the groove. But it's things like we do bike skills and stuff like that. So it's just easier now. We can all just organise normal training rather than being a bit more restricted. So it is good, yeah. And I've used the gym a lot. So it's been very handy that John was active in lockdown and created that for me. So I'm very lucky.
How many triathlons will you do before Tokyo?
A handful, not that many probably. The problem we've got is the risk of travelling. Like Leeds is a definite because it's in Leeds, but there's quite a few other races and you've kind of got to weigh up the risks, because if somebody on your flight, if two people on the flight test positive, you're isolating for 2 weeks. So you kind of have to weigh up whether it's worth going to a race to then risk having to have 2 weeks off. So it's really difficult. So I'll probably do quite a few, but they'll be very selective. I won't be, just nipping here, there and everywhere, because obviously the risk, it's just a different year, and it's not the same as it would be normally. But I don't mind that. I'll be ready, whatever the weather.
Yeah, I think the priority is getting you guys to the start line in Tokyo. That has to be what this is all about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've just got to minimise the risk, because, my partner John's had COVID, so we presume that I've probably had it as well. But you never know, and if you travel in different places, you're more likely to potentially get ill or, like we say, quarantine, and it all adds up in terms of time off or training wise. It could affect you. So you just got to be sensible and like you say, get to the start line fit as you can and go from there. Final
question, random question. I often when I'm sleeping at night, dream about my work. and podcast is not exactly the normal thing that people dream about. Do you dream about the Olympic Games and Tokyo?
Not really. No, I will. That sounds really bad, but I will when I'm getting nearer the race. I probably will. I have dreams that, you know, I'll get to transition and I've forgotten to put my bike in it, or I've forgotten my shoes. You know, it's never a dream when you like win gold. It's always like you've forgotten something or something goes wrong. But that's usually probably like the week or so before, which I don't know if I prefer. I think I'd prefer to have these types of dreams now. But yeah, I don't, not so much. No, I have to say.
Yeah, back in the day when I used to read news bulletins, I used to dream that I'd get to the studio and not have my script in front of me to make it up, which is not a thing.
It never ends well, does it? You're like, oh, God.
No, not good.
Yeah, I have similar dreams.
Well, Jess, we wish you all the best, and I know the dream will be winning those medals in Tokyo. So thank you once again for talking to Anything But Footy.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me.
Well, that was a slightly bizarre end to that, John. You and Jess Learmonth discussing your anxiety dreams together. But you made the point, actually, that it's interesting that athletes are not dreaming about stepping on a podium and having a gold medal put around their neck. But you said it to me earlier. You said, actually, they're dreaming about what might go wrong. And I think it's quite an interesting insight into the psyche of an elite athlete.
Because you kind of think that they have all this positivity and they get taught to be focusing and dreaming and visualising the race. I always remember Linford Christie talking about how he would visualise the 100 metres within 9 seconds that it took him to run it, and he would see himself crossing the line. But they've still got effectively nightmares because, you know, not having your shoes, not having the right transition bike is a nightmare for a triathlete.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's the anxiety dreams for me. It's about when I was doing a football commentary that I wasn't where I needed to be, or whether I had a school exam that I hadn't prepared for. But yeah, for Jess Learmonth, it's whether she's got her shoes or bike. I think we know that Team GB will be one of the best prepared, if not the best prepared team. I would be very surprised if on the day of the Olympic triathlon final, Jess doesn't have everything she needs.
Now, do you go and compete beforehand? You've talked about preparation there. This is a big question mark, and Jess mentioned that as well. Going to do triathlons before Tokyo because of the travelling, etc. We'll talk to Jade Jones about that in a moment. But we caught up with some canoeists last week, and we actually saw each other in person last week, socially distant, obviously. But those canoeists were saying they've got big decisions about their European Championships.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think if you've qualified and the mantra is get yourself to the start line, then why would you necessarily risk going and taking part in a Grand Prix event, a World Series event, a European Championship event, if you don't have to? Because what you're essentially doing there is taking yourself out of all those secure bubble type things that you have at home and the routine that you've got, which has kept you hopefully safe and well over the past year, and you're taking yourself off to wherever these championships or this event is being held. We saw it with the European Indoor Athletics that athletes came back, some tested positive, or members of the support staff tested positive. The impact then is you've got to quarantine. So by going away and competing, do you then end up missing a 2-week training block? It's a big decision. You know, some athletes may need to go because they may need to go and earn some money. That might have to be a consideration. But I think, you know, if you're on that elite sports centralised program, you're funded, you'll just be looking at everything and thinking, where can I minimise my risk where possible, like everyone is at the moment in the world.
And you said it spot on. The canoeists are already selected. They know they're going to Tokyo, while Taekwondo are still having to get selected. And they went this weekend to Bulgaria and competed at the European Championships. And what a great performance it was for Great Britain once again. Bianca Walden, the world champion, now European triple champion, with victory in her with a gold medal. 20-year-old Rebecca McGowan also getting a gold medal. Bradley Sinden and Lauren Williams winning silver as well. Great Britain finished at the weekend second in the medal table with the most successful women's team as well. And part of that was double Olympic champion Jade Jones, who won her European title again for a third time in these championships.
100 days to go. Is this when it goes and gets very real, Jade?
Yeah, this is the point, where it starts to get exciting and you can feel the build up. And like you said, 100 days to go. It's all systems go now, and just looking forward to getting there now.
And for you, of course, you're banging form. You've just made a bit more history at the European Championships. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I just got back from the European Championships in Bulgaria. Got a gold medal and really happy with my performance. It was kind of a competition to see where I'm at ahead of the games, with it only being a few months to go. And, we've not had that much chance to fight the world's best this time. So, it was amazing to get that chance and to perform really well, to show that, I am in a good place ahead of the games.
Slightly different build-up this year to this Olympics, Jade. What's it like travelling to Bulgaria, competing in these kind of COVID-safe environments?
Yeah, it is still really strange and really different. Obviously travelling with the masks and everything that comes with that. But as soon as we get to the hotel in Bulgaria, we're in kind of like a Taekwondo bubble. We have to get a COVID test before we enter it. And then we're stuck in the hotel, and you're not allowed to leave your room unless it's for food or for training or to compete. And obviously we're a team event, like a team, and you don't get to cheer on your team. You have to literally watch them from your bedroom on the TV. So that's a bit mad. And to be fair, I didn't realise how hard it would be, not having air and not going out. So, to be trapped in the hotel, it can kind of get very draining and you become a bit lethargic. And like you said, you just don't get no fresh air. Most of the time, hanging my head out the window just to get a bit of fresh air.
You mentioned the team. It was a successful team for British Taekwondo as well. I think you were the women's team was the highest number of medals that were won. The British team won that. And for Team GB, for the Tokyo Olympics, they reckon more women will qualify than men for the first time ever.
Wow, that's mad. Yeah, I think, it's just amazing to be part, a woman in sport, and it is getting bigger and better really. And, women are really starting to join and lead the way. And it's just amazing to be part of it. And, especially the history as well. I just love making history. So it's nice to be part of more history.
The wonderful Jade Jones, double Olympic champion, now aiming for 3 gold medals. No one's ever done that in the sport of Taekwondo before. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic sport podcast. Do let us know what you think on this anniversary, 100 days to go before the Olympic Games start of Tokyo 2020 and 2021. You can find us on Twitter at AnythingButF. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. Drop us a message there. Online at anythingbutfooty.com and email us anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. We don't know the makeup of the British rowing team yet. Traditionally, of course, a very strong sport, very strong showing over subsequent editions of the Olympic Games, but they have yet to be selected. But the British rowers were in action over the weekend at the European Rowing Championships in Italy, and they did well. Top of the medals table, of course, 12 medals. Obviously, you need to bring in some of the other nations from outside of Europe when we come to the Olympics. You think particularly of the Australians, Americans as well. But the signs are pretty bright, I think, for British rowing. Brighter, perhaps, than maybe we thought. Some of the highlights for me, Helen Glover back after 5 years since her last competitive final. Gold for her with Polly Swan, who, of course, is a doctor who's been working for the NHS throughout the pandemic as well. So brilliant for Helen Glover and Polly Swan in the women's pair. Men's 4, that's a boat that we've owned over subsequent editions of the Games. Men's 8 as well, the blue-ribboned event, you would say, at the European Rowing Championships. Also the paras as well, the para mixed pair of Lauren Rouse and Lawrence Whiteley. para-champions in Rio in 2016, and the Paracox Mixed 4 as well. They are the first British Paralympic crews to win gold at a European Championships, and Lauren Rouse said afterwards that basically it was incredible. She was struggling, I think, to kind of bring it to words because it was such a history-making moment. As she said, we are now the Paralympic world and European champions.
Talking of history and tradition, one of the sports we don't often talk about on Anything But Footy is footy, but it is one of the biggest Olympic sports. Both Michael and I were in the Maracanã in Rio watching Brazil and Neymar score a goal. That is one of my claim to fames in life generally. But it was huge out there, and it is huge around the world. But again, with our British spectacles on, as Michael was talking earlier, we don't think about football as being part of the Olympics. But Team GB are sending a women's team for the first time to an away games. They, of course, competed in 2012 the last time. The England Lionesses will make up the majority of it, but frankly, they're in a bit of state of flux at the moment. Just 4 wins out of their last 14. They have a new manager, a temporary manager at that, Haga Risa, who will take charge of Team GB at the Tokyo Olympics. The 51-year-old was part of the Norway team that won the Sydney Olympics in 2000. But England have recently lost in the last week to France and Canada, including 2 awful mistakes for the Canadian goals in the last match. They're without key players like Captain Steph Houghton as well. But during the live coverage last night on the BBC, summariser and former England player Karen Carney, who I'm not going to criticise too much because frankly she's had enough of that in her life, but she did say it doesn't matter in friendlies, that actually losing friendlies doesn't matter. Now, ultimately, Michael, and I think this is in all sport, you can't keep losing. You can say you're learning from it, but ultimately you can't keep losing. So to say it doesn't actually matter, I feel is not really the message that you want to be saying. It will be interesting to see what Scots, Welsh and maybe even Northern Ireland players now come into Team GB. Of course, Ireland qualifying for Euro 2022, which will be here in England next summer for the first time. Who will be picked for the Olympics, we will be finding out in the weeks and months to come, and we'll find out the Tokyo draw for Team GB on April the 21st.
Yeah, I understand what Karen Carney's saying because, you know, in terms of qualification for big tournaments, in terms of being at big tournaments, yeah, friendlies don't matter. They are a time to experiment, learn, but you do need to build a winning habit in all sports as well. And just going back to watching football at the Olympics in Rio in 2016, and people in this country saying it's not a big sport, it shouldn't be in the Olympics, it's not the pinnacle. With apologies to Tom Bosworth, I was sat in a cafeteria in Rio when they switched one of the Brazil women's internationals off and put race walking on. And I thought chairs and tables were going to go through the windows. There was a near riot, and the football got swiftly put back on. So don't tell me football is not an important Olympic sport. The first week, of course, from a British point of view, our main focus is on the aquatic centre and the swimming pool. And the British Para-Swimming International meet has taken place at Sheffield's Ponds Forge. Obviously, in the Paralympics as well, swimming has been a really successful sport for Para-GB. 3-time Paralympian Ellie Simmonds led home an impressive S6 1-2-3 for the Brits in the mixed classification 400 metres freestyle final. It was a very assured swim by Ellie Simmonds to win the World Series gold with a points tally of 887. Maisie Summers-Newton and Grace Harvey, by the way, second and third respectively. There was a world record. Stephen Clegg set that in the new S12, world record there in the men's 100 metres butterfly. Rhys Dunn was among those to set a new British best. He put himself in contention for selection for Tokyo later on in the year in the men's S14 MC 100 metres backstroke final. And in the women's MC 100 metres breaststroke SB 14 category, Louise Fiddis, who's a reigning world champion, took victory. Terrific time as well, which saw her under the classification for Tokyo, and looks like she'll be selected.
Yeah, and this week it's the British Olympic trials at the London Aquatic Centre. World Championship and Rio Olympic medalist Duncan Scott is one of 4 swimmers who's already been selected. But as he told us earlier, of course, when we caught up with him earlier this year, Michael, that he doesn't know which events he's going to be entered in. So he's got to go to these championships and perform to then know which ones he will be selected for in Tokyo.
Yep, it will be, I think, a good meet as far as British swimmers are concerned. And I think something that Hannah Cockcroft actually said to us when we were having a chat with her over the past week or so, it will be about the athletes that have handled the pandemic the best. And I think we might get some different results in Tokyo, and that's why I'm quite confident that Team GB, despite some predictions which have come out today by Grace Note, who do the predicted medal tables, who are, I think, predicting Great Britain will drop down to about 8th in the medal table and, be 20 or 30 medals less than they were in Rio. I think, and that is obviously, they do their predictions based on results in World and European Championships and things. I think that we might see some surprise medals, some different medals, where, as Hannah told us, who's dealt with the pandemic best, who's been able to train. And the fact that in this country we got those exemptions for elite athletes very early on as well, which meant it wasn't as interrupted. Of course, they've missed competition, but the training has gone ahead, and I think that's why we might see Team GB higher up than some of the predictions. Let's just move on quickly to sailing. Giles Scott, the reigning Olympic champion, of course, is back in the Finn class now after 6 months of being out with Sir Ben Ainsley trying to win the America's Cup, where ultimately, of course, they fell short. But it is the European Championships in Vila Moura, which is in Portugal this week as well.
And due to the ongoing government restrictions here, the following hockey matches have all now been postponed in May. That's GB Women, the Olympic champions, of course, against China, against Argentina, and the British men against Argentina as well. However, there has been a revised schedule for the Hockey Pro League, which is all part of these matches and these warm-ups for the Olympics. So there will be some in May at the Lee Valley Hockey and Tennis Centre. Great British men against India on the 8th and 9th of May. British men versus Germany on the 12th and 13th of May, and the women against Germany as well on the same dates, and then women against the USA and the men against Spain at the end of May as well. All matches will be played behind closed doors, but they will be live on BT Sport, which will be good to see as we head then to Tokyo, which will, by the end of May, will be a month away?
100 days to go. I better get that capsule hotel booked. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic Sport podcast, find us on Twitter at AnythingButF. Message us on Instagram and Facebook. Give us a follow as well. We keep you up to date with lots of Olympic and Paralympic news on our social media feeds. Find us online, anythingbutfooty.com. You can send us a message through there, or drop us an email, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. 100 days to go. Exciting.
Social Podcast Network.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.